Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 6. Let me share the screen here and get started with our overview. So this week we have 2 chapters in the writer's loop that I would like you to focus on, chapter 10 and chapter 12. So chapter 10 here is crafting a thesis for a substantial writing project. This is the research argument essay, which will be an 8 to 10 page paper. So this is important information to be looking at. We will be focusing primarily on thesis, introduction, and organizing the essay this week in preparation for doing the complete rough draft. So it's important to read through this thesis chapter, and then in chapter 12 we have tightening your argument. I want you to pay particular attention to 12.2, which is anticipate and address competing claims, and 12.3, consider how to integrate competing evidence. This whole chapter focuses on dealing with the counter argument or counterclaims, which is an important part of argumentative writing. You need to at least acknowledge that there is an opposition and that not everybody may agree with you. And this chapter will help you to understand how to tie all those different viewpoints together. And I will come back to something here in chapter 6, even though I think you've read that before. There is something that I want to review with you really quickly. So moving on, there is also a lecture on thesis statements, and you'll see that on the following page, and I'll explain that. There will be a video explaining the research argument outline, or the research argument rough draft, because there are some things I want you to understand about that, and I think doing it in this overview video would just be overkill, so that you have a separate video that you can watch. Hopefully it's under 5 minutes when you buckle down to do the rough draft. So the assignments for the week are the research argument outline, introduction, and thesis, which is due Friday the 19th. And I'll talk a little bit more about that once I get to the assignment page. Then there is a discussion board post that will be due the following day. And this is a self and peer review of the introduction and thesis. Again, I will explain that when I get to the assignment page. And then lastly, on Wednesday, the 24th, you have your research argument rough draft due. And that is right before we break for Thanksgiving. Yay! But that'll be due at the end of the day, not in the morning of Wednesday the 24th. So moving on through, you'll see here, the video here, it says week 9 thesis statements, and the reason for that is I am recycling. I'm sorry, but I had to. Recycling a lecture that I did for my 15-week course a few weeks ago. So just ignore the week 9 that's on the thumbnail and any dates that I refer to. I don't think I refer to any dates in the lecture, but if I do, just ignore the dates and just listen to the information that I provide in the lecture. It's the same information, and this lecture goes hand in hand excuse me, with the more on thesis statements page, which is the next page here. So this is a little bit more of an explanation on thesis statements in case you didn't understand from the reading or the lecture. Here is another place, and we have some examples, what to do, what not to do, and how to provide a roadmap. Here at the bottom, you will see a formula for success. These are some templates, and I referred to a resource that may be helpful, and I will show you that right now. So these templates are actually taken from a book that's called They Say, I Say. And if you hop over into week 7, you will see that I have a PDF of one of the chapters from the book that helps with counter arguments. So this one is called Skeptics May Object, planting a naysayer in your text. And this just shows how you can go about anticipating objections and dealing with counter arguments in your argumentative essay. So here we have some templates for entertaining objections. These templates can help you to write your way into the counter argument. Templates for naming your naysayers, templates for introducing objections informally. You don't have to use all of these, but if you're struggling to work your way into viewing the other side of the argument, these can be helpful. And then let's see, there are more. Yes, templates for making concessions while still standing your ground. And yeah, that's it for the templates. Of course, you don't need to look at the exercises. I put this in week 7, because I didn't want you to be too overwhelmed with more information. However, you may, of course, look ahead and refer to this if you want to. So let's go back to more on thesis statements. And here are a couple of other resources that this information was taken from. One is from Purdue OWL, the strong thesis statements, and then the other is writing a thesis and making an argument from the University of Iowa. So hopefully this information will help you sort through things. This next page is about organizing your essay, and I provide you with some information from a student's companion to the writer's loop regarding outlining. We have an example of a formal outline and an example of a less formal outline. This is more informal outline. And I also introduce you to the table or chart method of organizing your information. If you can set up a chart this way that has the paragraph title up here, the information, and then any quotation or evidence you might use. And then you would list each paragraph within your essay, or at least maybe some sections if you're just still kind of working on how you're going to organize your thoughts. But of course, we start with the introduction, then we have however many body paragraphs that you will need. It will be more than 4 or 5, and then a conclusion at the end. And then any information that you might need to include in that paragraph. So for example, in the introduction, find an interesting hook related to American government. And I'll talk about hooks in a sec. Here, as we go back to a section in chapter 6 from the writer's loop, but your introduction is also going to include your thesis statement, right? So if you have your working thesis, you could write it in this section, and then any quotations or evidence that you need. Typically, we don't need evidence in the introduction. You may have a quote as your hook. And again, we will talk about that in a moment, but typically we don't use any kind of evidence in our introduction. There's no need for it. We're introducing the essay, right? And then you would go with your body paragraphs. So here the example is, we have one body paragraph that's dealing with the Senate, the organization, job security and powers, just an idea of the things that they want to discuss in this. And then we have a quote from the whitehouse.gov website. So again, this would be some of the evidence or some of the quotations. And it's always a good idea to keep track of your sources. So either, you say, okay, this is where I got it from, or if you have the in-text citation already, then you can put your in-text citation there. That helps you to keep track of things. So you would do that for each body paragraphs. Say you just have a paragraph where you need to include some background information so that your introduction isn't, a page and a half long. Then, your first body paragraph might say background information, and then you just jot down a few thoughts, and maybe if you need some evidence there, you would do that. And then we end things with the conclusion. Typically, the conclusion is restating the thesis. This was also in an argumentative essay. This is typically where we will have a call to action. You want to leave your readers with a burning desire to do something, right? You've changed their minds. You've persuaded them to think of your stance, your position in the argument, and they should feel motivated to want to do something, right? And again, you don't really need quotations or evidence in your conclusion because you are just summarizing what you've argued and wrapping things up. So whichever way you choose to organize your ideas, the key is to find something that works for you. I don't want to force you into an outline, but I do think it's a good idea to have some idea of how your paper is going to be organized, because that just makes things easier for you. It makes your writing flow more logically, the ideas will flow better, and you will be better understood by your audience. And that's the whole point of this assignment, is just to kind of gather your thoughts and have a plan of action. So let's go to the research argument outline, introduction and thesis. So I have a sample argument outline here. This PDF is the classic model for an argument, and I find this to be very good way of plotting out an argumentative essay. So we start with the introductory paragraph, thesis, right? And then the body of the argument, you may want some background information, reasons or evidence to support your claim. However many claims you might have, these may all be a variety of paragraphs. And then addressing the opposite side. Typically, we save the counter argument until the end. However, some people like to get the counter argument out of the way in the beginning so that they can then show all the various reasons why your side of the argument is the right side. So here are ways of addressing the opposite side. And then, of course, the conclusion brings things to a logical end. Explain the importance of your issue is in a larger context. Some arguments propose solutions or make predictions. And then you show your reader what would happen if the argument is not believed or acted upon. And here's where I got that handout from. So this is a good one to look at. Again, whoops. You can also use the information on that previous page of organizing your argument. And then you will construct your organizing principle, your outline or your table for your research argument essay. And then I also want you to include your draft introductory paragraph with the highlighted working thesis. Be as detailed as possible with your outline or your table as you like. However, if you only have a general idea of what claims you will make and which support you will use, that's fine. So, as long as you have something jotted down and that you have some general idea of where you're going. The goal of this assignment is just to help you progress to the next stage of drafting your essay. So that is due November 19th. That's Friday, and it will be a file upload. And then this following one is the discussion board self and peer review. And this will just be for the introduction and thesis statement. So I don't want you uploading the same document that you sent to me. I want you to copy and paste your introduction with a thesis statement into this text box here. Right? You're going to copy and paste that information. Don't post a document. It just makes things difficult for other students to have to open a document and read it and then make points, right? So make it easy on your classmates and make it easy on me so that we don't have to open yet another document. but make sure that you have a working title, your introductory paragraph, and make sure that the thesis statement is highlighted. And the way you highlight the thesis statement is by using this highlight feature. So if you look here, we have this little pen icon, and if you click on it and you bring the drop-down menu, you can choose the color to highlight. And to highlight, you just left click and drag your mouse over the chosen text, click on this button, and then click on the color. And then to stop highlighting, you just click on that little red diagonal line. So make sure that you inactivate that highlighting after you've highlighted your thesis text. Then you're going to respond to these questions first for your own writing, right? You are doing a self-evaluation here. Is your title interesting? Why? Do you have a title? If not, maybe you should think about putting a title in, right? Does the essay start with an interesting or relevant hook? What types of hooks are used? Are the hooks effective? Why or why not? Now, I'm going to take you back to chapter 6 in the writer's loop. So here we have in chapter 6.2, introducing your main claim. And I think this here, writing a persuasive introduction, just to review it, the first paragraph introduces your reader to the general topic. And while the contents of the opening paragraph varies depending on the type of argument you're writing, it typically has 3 common features that appear in order. First, you have your hook, then you have background or context, and then you wind up with your claim or your thesis. So the hook is really that first opening sentence that really should grab your reader's attention. So you can do it by using an interesting or intriguing rhetorical question. Excuse me. Remember, the rhetorical question is a question that doesn't really need an answer, but it it awakens the brain, so to speak. You can start with a fact or a quote, or even a brief anecdote. Sometimes it could be a shocking statistic, anything that pulls in the audience by inviting them into the conversation presented in the text. So that's the hook. So you want to think about how interesting is the beginning of your essay. You don't want to put your reader to sleep right away, right? You don't want to put your reader to sleep ever, honestly, but you really want to grab their attention right off the bat. So taking a look at that first sentence and seeing if it's effective and thinking about how you might be able to change it and then make it better. Then you also want to make sure that your introduction provides a topic that's relevant to the assignment. Remember, it's a research argument essay. You're not going to be writing an expository essay on the different brands of sneakers that are available to men with size 13 feet. I don't know why that was in my brain, but it was. And then you want to look at your thesis to make sure that it contains a topic and a stance and possibly has points to argue. It should be 1 to 2 sentences, and make sure that the thesis is near the end of the introductory paragraph. So that is assignment 2. Now, for this next assignment, the research argument rough draft, as I said, I'm going to record a separate short video pointing out the various things that we are dealing with. But just to know that it is 8 to 10 pages, not including the works cited page, and that your rough draft is due Wednesday, November 24th. So that is all for this overview. Hopefully it hasn't been too confusing. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to email me and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. I apologize if I was a little slow in responding last week, but I was called out of town, and so I'm just kind of playing catch up right now and trying to get things in order so that we can go into the end of the semester smoothly. So yeah, email with me if you have questions, and I'll be happy to help. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.